Hello and welcome to this Dawn Busters Taste Challenge. 16 minutes, 17 minutes later than I wanted to come on, but honestly couldn't do anything about that. Daylight pretty much outside now. Longest day of the year here, so it'll be daylight a long time. What, 14 hours? We have Royal Canadian, introduced in 1934. A Sazerac brand to date, the fourth company that's owned it, versus Canadian Club 12-year aged. Small batch blended Canadian whiskey, classic 12, aged 12 years. That's what it's called, classic 12, aged 12 years. This is the reformatted, kind of reformatted it about 2 years ago. In this new square bottle, but it originally came out in 1984. 33 years ago, the company was trying to get more fancier, a little more what we call craft beer. But of course, this is whiskey, but the same concept we had in the 80s with beer, trying to get into more the craft beer approach. Even back then with your major companies trying to do it, never really worked. With the major beer companies, seem to have worked better with whiskey. Also, there's a Royal Canadian small batch, but I've not seen that one anywhere. Michael H. Daylight here. Good morning. Oh, good morning to you. So no, I haven't seen the Royal Canadian small batch, but I'll keep an eye open for it. I'm not desperate to get it, but it would be nice, I think. Got about half the bottle left, so I can do a good number of taste challenges with it. And we tried this last week. I'm going to post a video for it in a little while. You know, with David Garlapete and myself, we tried it and he loved it. He said he was going to go buy a bottle of it. Thank you, John and Nille, for giving it to me as a gift. Some kind of gift, huh? Well, as you can see, try to even it out. As you can see, the Canadian Club is much darker, deeper amber. It is aged 12 years. Do they add coloring to it to darken it? They might. Canadian whiskeys are allowed to add caramel color. They don't have to disclose it. Royal Canadian, I guess this is 3 years aged, made with corn, barley, and rye, and the Canadian Club the same, but just aged much longer. Now, could it get that dark? Guess so. 12 years, but I don't know. This probably won't be that much of a, I can't look at them, right? I can't dare glance at them because it'll be a giveaway. The deep amber versus the lighter straw gold. My daughter did not like the Royal Canadian. She said, no, it did not taste bad. It didn't have bad flavors. She just said that it was too dull. It was a lack of flavor. Yeah, I can see her saying that because it seems like the Royal Canadian doesn't really add too much of the other distilled spirits like rum or brandy or bourbon. Maybe bourbon they do. But rum or brandy or any kind of wine. It just has more of an American whiskey taste, much like the Seagram's VO, which is like a standard American flavor. And some shoot for that and some don't. Some have more of that exotic Canadian thing going. I'm trying not to look. That's why I have the glasses down on my, close to my lap. Hello, says Valentin George. Hello to you. So these both have that kind of American style thing. I did a Canadian Club, the regular 6-year, well, the former regular, now it's 5-year age, but the 6-year Canadian Club versus Royal Canadian. I had that guessed on aroma only because the Canadian Club has that honeycomb flavor. Now, will the 12-year have the honeycomb? I just sipped it a little bit to get it even with the other. I don't recall that flavor either last week on Saturday or today. But let's go with the taste challenge. Kansas City Southern Railroad. All right, first I'll give the aroma test. Now after this, I'm planning to do Royal Canadian versus Seagram's VO. I think there will be an actual challenge. It'll be very challenging. They're similar to each other in many, many ways. They may be virtually the same as far as taste, but you never know until you do it. Then after that, how about we start next week with Royal Canadian versus Seagram's VO Gold, the 8-year age. Now that could be interesting, right? And I keep seeing that at the store. They must have an enormous amount of backstock of VO Gold, even though it was discontinued. The production was discontinued last year, 2017. But they just might still have some aging, you know what I mean? Like maybe they're on year 7 and they're just gonna, they might have a bunch in the barrels aging, and then once that washes out, then they'll take it off the market. But so it could be years before it comes off the market. Someone told me they have a warehouse full of that stuff in New Orleans, that VO Gold. It's just so much of it. Could have just been that down here we had a lot. Okay, this one has a strong alcohol burn, corn distillate burn. Maybe a little honey note or honey bread, that like honey top bread, like Sara Lee honey top bread. Yeah, I got to keep my eyes closed. Sorry, it's too risky. I'll glance, and if I glance, I got to start over. And I need to go to the store and buy some Bud Ice. Just the truth. And do some cleaning in this house and fold clothes. But this is not a vlog, and I'm sure you're not interested in all that. Now, in aroma, check this out. In aroma, without looking, they're not that different. Not that different. Although this one is sweeter, like a more of a caramel candy in the nose. And maybe more depth of flavor. Or I should say aroma. Okay. Don't want to spill them. I'll keep holding them. Lighter, heavier. I'm talking about in the aroma. Let's go with taste. I think I know. I think this must be Royal Canadian and this must be Canadian Club 12-year. But let's taste them. I'll change. I haven't declared a winner, and I haven't declared which is which yet. So we got to do that. Can't hold me to the preliminary guessing. Okay. It's got that standard thing. Little plum wine underneath, though. Gotta admit that. Yeah, okay. But mostly standard. But American blended whiskeys, a lot of them will have that underlying wine thing too, like from the blending sherry. But it's very discreet. It's not, you have to really think about it to pick it up. Yep. More caramel, candy, even Werther's Original or that Riesings, whatever that stuff's called, candy. That was it from Switzerland. More wood. Yeah, wood barrel. Not char really too much, just the wood, not char. Like bourbon. I was drinking that bourbon last night, straight bourbon. And I said, whoa, that's a lot of char. And I said that to myself. That was the Jethro T. Boots. A remarkable amount of char, really. Remarkable. This one, you don't have that. So a bourbon drinker would taste this and say, oh, what's wrong with it? You know, all I drink is bourbon. I can understand that. It's not that there's anything wrong with it. It's just made differently. It's a different style of whiskey, so it isn't going to have that. It isn't going to have that. They might like the Jethro Tull Boots, though. Now, which one's better? Okay. Gee, I'm picking up more and more of that wine flavor. Or even rum, sugar. I never had rum before, but I know what it's made with. Cane, you know, molasses and all. Yeah, it's got to be Royal Canadian, distilled under the supervision of the government of the Dominion of Canada. That's what the label says. Yeah. I mean, Canadian Club 12 year is not exquisite, right? Like, you're not going to say, oh, wow, it's so exquisite and complex and it has all these things. Nah, it doesn't. When you watch the review that I'm going to post, we didn't talk about any kind of exotic things. No, he was just, my friend David and myself, we just said it's good. It's really good. He said that's quality, you know, and I just think it's the aging. I think it's the same as Canadian Club. They're just putting it in there. You know, similar recipe at least, not identical, but they're going 12 years with it. It's bringing out things with the wood interaction. So it's still a standard. Now the wood might suck out that strange honeycomb taste. I don't know. It might, and then replace it with wood. I don't know. But it's just like a premium standard product. You know what I'm saying? Like an above premium standard product, but a standard taste. So if you're looking for exotic taste, this is not gonna be it. And neither is this. If you want an older, more developed taste, this will work and this wouldn't. I think this is a little bit better. Interestingly, though, I guess this has got to be a good deal more expensive. I've never checked the price. I know Royal Canadian's probably, $10 to $12 a bottle for your regular size 750 milliliter bottle. $12, 10 to 12 bucks, depending on where you find it. $10 to $12. I'm figuring this other one here is probably twice that amount. Is it twice as good? I wouldn't go that far. It's better, but it's not double the enjoyment. It's just got more. It's, like I said, it's more advanced. It's kind of like, it's kind of like a Mustang, a 1980. I believe they started the, I could be the wrong in the years. It might have been 84 when they started the L. Okay, so let's say it might be like a 1984 Mustang LX versus a GLX. Let's say an L versus a GLX. Let me think about that. They used to have an L, a GL, and a GLX, right? Then they replaced it with the LX. Yeah. Well, anyway, that kind of thing. Like an L was okay, you know, it was nice, Mustang, you know, basic carbureted 2.3 liter. But then you could get the GL, which was the same engine, but you had nicer equipment, interior mostly, and some suspension, I think. But no, it's probably more like an L versus a GLX. Yeah. Like I said, I'm getting those years confused because I know they went to L and then LX, but it doesn't matter. It's the same concept. It's not like you're jumping from an L to a GT. Okay, you're not jumping to a 1984 GT. Maybe a turbo GT, but not a 5.0 GT. Okay, anyway, you get the point. So I would go with Canadian Club, but taking price into account, maybe you'd be willing to do that trade-off. Like you're gonna take a hit on flavor, but get it for half the price. But the hit you're taking isn't so bad. It's not so bad. I think my daughter just is not used to these low profile flavors in whiskey, so it throws her off, and then she thinks it's not good. All right, why these beverages are produced in Canada and bottled in the USA? Tax reasons? Probably yes, because then, but I don't know. Because it's still coming in from Canada. But maybe if it's in a bottle coming in from Canada, it costs more. But like Canadian Club, they bring it to the United States, bottle it in Illinois, and then ship it back to Canada and sell it in Canada. Even the Canadian Club in Canada is bottled in the US. It does show the whole false narrative or the fakeness, right? We hear that word a lot, fake, of the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement that was instituted by George W. Bush, but Bill Clinton pushed to ratify it in '94. Because, you know, I said, well, why does it need to be 2,300 pages of all these exceptions? If it was truly a free trade agreement, there wouldn't be any taxes. That wouldn't matter. There would be no taxes for Canadian liquor to America or American U.S. liquor to Canada. That would be true free trade. No taxes at all. It's not the North American Free Trade Agreement. In reality, it's the North American It's the North American highly regulated trade agreement with multiple exceptions. That's what it really is. And so people were telling me, you don't support it because you're against free trade. I said, I don't support it because it's not free trade. And the governments do this a lot. They'll call something the opposite of what it is. You know what I mean? Because then it's more sellable. They frame it, or it's almost even a lie because they call things what they aren't. Free trade agreement, that's not free. But all these taxes and regulations, well, then it's not free trade. I mean, okay, let's check it out. Royal Canadian, right? And Canadian Club. So I got it on aroma only. Okay. Well, I've been batting like a perfect batting average with these Canadian whiskeys, I think. Perfect. I think it's I don't think I ever failed. American blended whiskey. I failed a lot, but they're so similar. When people tell me, it's all the same stuff. It's all the same stuff. And then I say, no, you're wrong. And then I did the taste challenges. I'm saying, no, they're right. They're right. It is really all the same stuff with little minuscule, insignificant differences. The Canadian whiskeys have much more pronounced differences between the brands, I think. Yeah. But in many cases, they aren't any more expensive than Americans, maybe cheaper in some cases. So, all right. Well, that was very interesting to me. You might have hated it, but I thought it was interesting. So just what I predicted. I would get it right off the aroma, and I did. The VO, not going to be so easy. I think there's a 50-50 shot that I'm going to fail there because the VO is a little too similar to Royal Canadian for my comfort. But if it was never challenging, wouldn't be much of a taste challenge, would it? So that's it coming up. And then I have even more exciting news. After we go through those Canadian brands, get ready for Scotch taste challenges. Blended Scotch. And I've got a pretty good amount already ready to roll, so it'll take a little while to march through those brands, one against the other. Of course, I have a lot more to do. And then I'll bring in another Canadian, and then another Scotch, and then another Canadian, and another Scotch. And then, of course, some more American blended whiskeys. I got to bring those in. I don't really like them. I realized that American blended whiskey is sort of, no, it's not bad. I can't say it's bad. It's just so bland. It's so bland. But I have the T.W. Samuels, and I have, King Square, which my friend David was fascinated by. He said, look how light it is. He was shocked by how light it was. I said, I know, it's incredible. The palest thing you ever saw. He said, that looks like moonshine. It's not that clear, but it's heading to. And then I've got to bring in the 75 South. And then the Canadians, I have the heir to the throne. I don't know what throne they think they're going to inherit. And the Canadian Crest, I think it's called. And it just goes on. And Windsor Canadian, and Canadian Royal, Rich and Rare, and then Rich and Rare Reserve. And then I've got the Bellows blended whiskey and Bellows Club whiskey, and what's the one I picked up? King Robert II Scotch, and the Northern Lights. It used to be called Northern Light. Northern Light. But then at some point in history, some weird reason, it got changed to the Northern Lights. It seems like even Sazerac, who makes it, is confused by the name. Like their website says, the Northern Light. You click on it, then you look at the photos, and I have the bottle in hand, the Northern Lights. I was like, you don't even know what your own brand is called. You don't even realize it's like Schlitz. They didn't know where the recipe was for the original Schlitz. I actually couldn't find it. They admitted, well, we couldn't locate the 1969 recipe. So we got these guys together and asked them, you worked at the breweries back then. What did it taste like? I mean, imagine what disarray that company must have been in when they couldn't locate the recipe. It's like, where did Schlitz keep their beer recipes? In a shoebox, and it just got dumped out? I mean, that's a real bad indictment of a company's organization where you cannot find the recipe. But I think it's like that. When they buy out these companies, they just abandon the site. Like somebody was taking a tour, illegal trespassing, but no one cared apparently, of the Old Crow Distillery in Kentucky. And he was taking photos all in there. And it was just bags of grain left. They weren't even broken into by rats. I don't know, even the rats abandoned the place. And it was like one day it was an operation, then they just walked away. They put a fence up, don't trespass, and they just left it. Same thing with the Falstaff Brewery in New Orleans before they turned it into a apartment complex. Some guy snuck in there with a video camera. I think it's still on YouTube, and a still camera. I think it was before Katrina hit, and he was just taking photos, and it was just desks full of documents, all kind of just bottles everywhere, and Falstaff this, Falstaff that on the walls. It was like literally they just closed it down in 1979, and they left it, and whatever was there, they just stayed. That's fascinating. And that's what I'm saying. Like, here's Sazerac. They own the Northern Lights, but they still think it's called Northern Light. The Northern Light. They might have changed it to the Northern Lights because that's what people call the Aurora Borealis, right? And maybe they were worried that people would think it was like a light whiskey, the Northern Light, some kind of confusion, because people can be that dumb. So, but my point is why you don't even realize your own company has changed the label. All right, thanks for watching this video production. And so we got the Canadian Club review coming up, and a whole bunch of other stuff, I think, and not just We got wine coming up, all kind of beer. Thank you for watching this video production.